Elevation.
Cool and Dre.
Big blunts, dope boys wanna smoke with me. Now we ride double M's through the whole city. Niggas talking down, but they always feel me. A 9-figure nigga, all I wanna talk is business. I seen a big mouth get a closed casket. Self-made, took over the whole racket. A kilo after kilo, see who moved them.
What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Goofy Investing. Welcome back to the underground. Kind of back-to-back videos, yeah. So typically I don't post that many videos, but still a lot to cover. Earnings season, more news happening, and so forth. So you're going to see a little bit more of me due to that. Plnh 13. Let's talk about Plnh 13 earnings, where I see the equity going, and we'll talk about some generalized themes going forward and so forth. So, Plnh 13 earnings. Okay, let's look at the results. All right, revenues were $32.2 million, net loss was $7.4 million, and adjusted EBITDA of $1.3 million. We'll go back on actual comparisons. All right, let me see here. So, looks like revenue growth was 29.7%. Might as well call it 30% revenue growth. Net loss comparison year over year, $7.4 million as compared to $46.3 million. All right, so pretty impressive year over year improvements. Expenses were $20 million as compared to $55 million, a decrease of 63.6%. And gross profit, all right, so gross profit $16.7 million or 51.9% as compared to 44.7%. So we're seeing increase of revenue up to 30%. Gross profit, all right, 51.9%. This is pretty dramatic, all right. It's about a little over 600 basis points, or 700 basis points, if you will, of improvement on the gross profit margin. That net loss is coming in to translate to less cash burn. So these are huge milestones towards profitability, but at what cost? All right. Well, they had the Florida VitaCan acquisition. We'll look at the balance sheet. All right. And at what cost, I say again. All right. So we're no longer net cash. They closed on that acquisition like a month or two ago. And as a result, we're more net debt into a position. In fact, not too long ago, those few quarters ago, I recall seeing net cash of like 50 to 60 million, and then the debt to 27, 25 million or so. So had a pretty strong balance sheet. So this was an acquisition to growth strategy. All right, we'll analyze and see if that is actually working out. We'll look at some earnings estimates real quick. Analyst consensus estimates got them growing 29.44% for the year on revenues to land at $127.5 million in revenue. We'll look at the financial statement to see how much revenue they've done so far. Well, they've done 109.1 million in trailing. Okay, so we'll look at this here. We'll go on a quarterly. All right, so we're seeing from a comparison, once again, last year 24.8 to 32.2. All right, these are the numbers that were increased and contributed from the Florida acquisition. Now, what do I take from the actual conference call? All right, consumer slowdown and weakness. All right, the Nevada market is getting hit with consumer weakness, and around the U.S., more consumer weakness. All right, and there's a seasonality aspect to this product, and this is pretty much going to be one of those weaker quarters. Now, let's get into some of the bad news. All right, so let's pull up our handy dandy checklist. All right, here's my catalyst checklist for Plnh 13. We had a Florida recreational ballot vote in November to, on a state level, legalize recreational use of the flowers. Let's look at the results of that. If you're a Planet shareholder, you probably already know. Lost that vote. The actual vote went into effect. They needed 60% for the vote to be approved. Me personally, I think the gig is up. 60% to get this thing approved. I don't know. Maybe a little. I don't know. I don't assess that as like fair, but it is what it is. Me personally, I think if over half the people want this thing approved, then that should be it. But I'm not a legislator. I'm not a lawmaker, so it is what it is. The vote came in favor of legalization at 55.9%, 56%, if you will, and opposition came in at 44.1%. So, I mean, it is what it is. You can't win them all. So we'll go to our handy dandy catalyst checklist, and then for our recreational vote or ballot on the actual catalyst, we're gonna mark that red, and we're pretty much gonna draw a red line here. All right, let me get this. We'll draw X right here. All right, and then we'll save this to our catalyst moving forward as we go through the actual planet story. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, I just saved it. Now that we got that out of the way, let's look at the actual position in which I'm invested. All right, here's my actual planet position. I got 16,500 shares. All right. When I invested $10,194, that was the valuation that I awarded the planet story. All right. There was some quant in there with the math, but the majority of these invested dollars are granted based on a valuation of story. That story is down 17.85%. So how I see it is my story is worth $8,375 right now. Okay. So the game's not over. It's like a football game. It's not over till it's over, right? Planet 13 is still in the running, okay? They're expanding out in Florida. They're going to open up some more dispensaries in Nevada, even though there's consumer weakness. And what they're pretty much doing is they're positioning properly for growth in 2025 to be able to capture that growth. They're experiencing the revenue growth right now due to the acquisition, which I'm happy about. Now let's talk about some other things that I've caught on the earnings call, because the balance sheet took a hit due to that acquisition. So we have to be cognizant of balance sheet health now. Now that we don't have as healthy of the balance sheet as we did. So, and when I say we as shareholders that own this company. All right. So let's talk about taxes. All right. Maximum effect. All right. So there's a lot of companies out there in this space that are highly leveraged and that have decided to stop paying the 280E tax ahead of time. I think this is a fallacy. This is why I stay away from those companies with bad balance sheets. A lot of them have taken more dramatic hits to their stock as compared to Planet 13. Some as much as 80% declines in their price action. Planet only took so much as let me see here. On a 1 month basis, 11% and 20% on a 6 month basis. All right. So fundamentally, price action to value and execution, operational execution, I think Planet is a little undervalued in that regard. All right. But with that said, a lot of this business model is legislative guessing games. I hate it. Legislation takes so long. It's one of those things. And, if you're in this, your thesis is long-term, pretty much long-term. Your thought process is the United States is going to legalize on a federal level long-term. Okay. But there are some setbacks. The Senate does have increased opposition of federal legalization, so that might hurt a little bit. So there are setbacks on the actual legislation piece, as you saw with that actual recreational ballot vote. Um, I think that the governor is pretty much does not like or support legalization on a state level on a recreational basis, but it is what it is. Now, does that mean that just because this vote happened and the public consensus was still 56%, and even though the vote failed, does that mean that the state can't just still legalize it? No. I mean, so if the lawmakers, even though the ballot didn't pass up to 60%, the lawmakers in the state of Florida can still legalize. Now, will they? Probably not. Okay, I think that it's going to be elongated tailwind, a slow tailwind, if you will, that we have to look forward to after this setback. All right. So let's talk about taxes. All right. Not much I'm talking about taxes on this channel, but Planet, as I said before, a lot of the companies decided to stop paying 280E tax in advance in anticipation of legislation to happen this year. And it has not happened. We'll go back to the actual checklist. And what do I mean by that? The rescheduling from the DEA is going to trigger the 280E tax removal. All right. So right now it's November 10th. At the end of the calendar year, at the end of December, when we get into New Year's, consider that the deadline for the DEA to actually reschedule this thing. If the DEA reschedules this thing, all right, if the DEA reschedules before the end of the tax year, that means Planet will have a refund of about $35 million. All right, and of course the IRS will try to challenge that, so that refund will probably be delayed at a one-time incremental flush of liquidity into the equity, probably in the middle of 2026. Okay, so that's something to consider. I've done the math. They got about 28 million on the balance sheet right now. They got taxes payable about 15.5, so that puts them at around 12.5% or 12.5 million. And then there's an acquisition cost for some more dispensaries to close. That's another 4 million. So we get and the refinancing of some notes outstanding. I'm probably going to guess that's going to cost maybe $500,000. So we're looking at about 8 million in cash and cash equivalents projected at the end of the year. All right. So I want to see, let me take a look at something. We'll go to financials, we'll go to income statement. Yes, diluted weighted average shares. I wanted to see this. So they need to be issuing shares to pad that balance sheet to get through. All right. Oh, what's up, Lestat? What's up? Get down. All right, let's get down here. Sorry about that. Lestat the cat decided to interrupt. All right. So come here, Lestat. All right, there you go. I'll pet you while you're down there. All right. So that's something to consider. Planet 13. All right. Balance sheet took a hit, and prepare for it to take another hit. All right. This is what the balance sheet is there for. All right. Let's look at earnings estimates. Their projected profitability next year, by the end of next year. So I think it's possible they do a capital raise. Maybe they cut some headcount. Maybe they pull some levers to just get profitability going, so that they don't have to do a huge equity raise while the actual stock is down. So that's my take on things. I remain bullish on Planet. What do I intend to do? So is it a buy, hold, or sell? Right now, Planet to me is a hold. All right. They're still focusing on building out that Florida footprint. We should be seeing accretive revenue increases. Management has said that potential revenue increases for a runway or double the revenue of what they're doing right now. which is exactly what we need to be seeing. So these, if they double the revenue, I think they pretty much are going to hit profitability if they do some levered cost cutting initiatives and just making this thing profitable. And I think that's what Planet needs. I think they just, next year they focus on continued growth, and on the second half with more scale, they start pulling some levers and getting this thing to profitability, and from there we should be easy coasting with not as much pressure on the actual growth, all right, and the actual equity itself. So if you're getting value out of this channel, if you're a Planet 13 shareholder, consider subscribing. If you're getting value, consider subscribing as well. Check out my Patreon, all right? $5 a month, you get access to the Looney Syndicate, which you get access to the Hidden Gem Collection, be with like-minded investors, more direct access with me, additional spreadsheets, all different types of stuff on there. So with that being said, thank y'all. I love y'all. And until the next time, peace out.